for our assignment, we're looking again at flexible, responsive web pages that change in size according to their width. So we're going to use this media at rule and screen max width in our own websites. This example is good. It's very simple. It just has two colors. So yellow when wide and blue when narrow. So we could kind of start with this and then see what else we might want to add to it. This has just one screen possibility. I don't know if your assignment asks for 2 screens, but this one has a 2-screen setup. Yes. So green, blue, green, blue, and lavender. So I would recommend going to this example. And using this as the structure for your 3-screen possible setup for your homework. So if we took all of this and we put it in here and we're like, great, but we actually might have whatever our own situation is for our content. We could start with this, and then you could even keep this background thing on as a debug mode until you're completely done with setting like all of your column layout, how you want it to be, and maybe your font size changes or whatever changes, and then remove it at the end, right? So because you know that this works, so if I save it, let's test it first. Too many windows. Oh gosh. Why? So here it is. And hopefully the behavior reproduces itself. Not quite, right? So the blue is very small. And also these sizes are somewhat off for our usage. So we want to use a cell phone, a tablet, and a desktop. Those are our 3 use cases. So we might say the smallest a cell phone will be is like no longer 400 pixels really. It's like closer to 650. And a tablet is going to be closer to 900 at least. Even that seems like a little small for me, but maybe we're backwards compatibility-izing it. So now we have the blue appearing as a default, and this is our cell phone layout. So we would put all the CSS that we would have for the cell phone case in here, and you could even like you can use comments to help yourself and to help future readers of your code. Okay, and then you would, maybe you would start with content. Okay, so let's see what it asks you. Right, so then we can look at flexible grid and changing our columns. So the video I made for you with the like almost functioning YouTube page emulation is a good example of using Flexbox for this assignment. I recorded but didn't edit in what the YouTube like would be doing or why I made it be that way in relationship to YouTube. So if we look at this, we can see that like they have a grid on the side of their video in default mode. And then when you get to, you shrink it and the main video shrinks and like for a little while, the grid on the side like just lets you take away information. But then at some point when you're in the middle of the screen, it just like takes up the entire screen with the video, which is kind of great. It's my favorite mode. So it kind of gives you the like the mobile experience of YouTube, where all the other stuff is down below while you're on your desktop. So this is like, for me, this is optimal size. And then it continues to shrink. So that was why I made those two grid layouts for you guys to follow. But then I found, okay, we did this. I found this really great. Yeah, this page has a really, really nice image gallery. And you can see the image gallery expands from 2 to 4 images. And they're also tiled nicely. I think they're tiled nicely. Okay, and they are, they're using this responsive at Meteor Rule with Flexbox situation. So we could kind of start with this, or kind of start to make our own, maybe, yeah, our own version of this. So let's see, they have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images in here. So we could try to do that. So I have my Rainbow 480. So I think I'm just going to, if you command U in Photoshop, you get this like hue changer. So maybe I will just shift this. This is kind of cool if you ever want to make an animated GIF in Photoshop or another similar image processor that's something that's flowing like from a rainbow color. You can just shift forward by like 15 points on the hue spectrum, and then you can save another one. So maybe I'll call them this. Like RGB, right? And then you could do it again. So that's the yellow one, kind of. That's like the lime green one. Regular green. Oh my god, the green spectrum. So much of it. So I'll make one for teal, just because there's so much green to be had over here. Okay. Cyan. At last we have blue. Oops. Maybe it would have been better if I gave these things number names, because they're not going to quite arrange themselves in alphabetical order to show an animation. Yeah. So if I was doing this for the purpose of making an animated GIF, instead of calling it rainbow R, rainbow O for orange, and Y for yellow, maybe I would make it 1, 2, 3, 4, so they automatically stack in the right order, and you could get like the transition from the colors. That makes sense. But for our purposes, it doesn't matter, since we're making just a grid of images. So let's do that. So let's take their column stylings. But we'll take our own images, and since the images are all in the same folder as the index file that's calling them, we don't need to have our / W3 images or whatever folder name. We can just call it directly. And now we have to go through the somewhat tedious job of replacing all of these files. I will speed this up in the recording to be released after. Okay, and then since they have another column going, and we also would want another column, let's copy that. Oh, someone said you're welcome for the hue pointer. Yes, good. I'm glad it was useful. It's really great. One of my favorite rainbow artists I follow on Instagram uses this effect a lot in Photoshop to make these like beautiful animated GIFs. Like she'll find a place in nature or just like out in the world. Like she'll find a building in her city that's like very red, for example, and she'll just take a photograph of it, and then she'll go through the hue thing. So she'll like isolate the building and go through the hue thing, and then you get a photograph that's like looks normal. It looks like you're in a town, and then the building is changing color, which is like really, really great. Okay, let's see. What was that? Did I copy the P yet? No. Oh my god, there's so many of them. Why did I do this to myself? This is another reason why like markup languages are so much more tedious to me than programming languages, because like the whole point of programming is that you write iterative code that runs through all these file names for you automatically, or like runs through all your units automatically, so that you don't have to just like copy and paste all these long columns of similar text. So yay, I'm really looking forward to next week so we can play with that stuff. Okay, let's see if this gives us a bunch of pictures. Whoa. Really? Why are you so big? This doesn't look like a 480 pixel image to me. Oh, because the width is 100% and we didn't put our columns into anything. Right. So our browser is stretching the images that we have to 100% of its of the next element that's around it, which in our case is this column, which we haven't even described anywhere. So it's kind of a imaginary element. It's not defined. And then the element right above that one is the body element, which is just like the browser, basically. So our 480 size rainbow image is just everything. That's cool. Okay, let's further break down their awesome description that they made for us, or their awesome example. So this example is also duplicating, so you could see here the same image is called. So they're duplicating the images twice so that we have enough images to populate an entire page with. So that's good. Let's copy that. And then we can see that they put, so they have these columns. The images are organized in columns, but then the entire thing is organized as a row. So it's a row of image columns. So it's 4 columns in a row. So we'll copy that part. So the columns, the 4 columns are encapsulated, we would say, inside of a row element. Okay, let's close that div. Save. So now if we go to Firefox, so we haven't applied any styling, so it should still be, yeah, giant rainbow gradient. Okay, and now let's apply the styling. So here the styling is internal, which I think we also have. Yeah, our styling is internal as well. That's great. Okay, we don't really need this font family stuff because we don't have any font. We don't even have a header. So let's do our row part. Oh, we need the whole thing. And so we can say, oh, I put it inside of the body. There we go. And so we can say, no matter what, we probably want this to be in a row that is using the flex display and that it's going to wrap its elements around. And so you see I'm putting this information inside, so it's encapsulated inside of every @media condition. And they're all going to be the same no matter what, I think. Let's confirm that right now. Yeah. Right. So the responsive part happens in the columns in terms of how the columns take up space. So for our tiniest column, that's going to be this one. So minimum width of 0. We're going to have the column take up 100% of the space. So one column takes up 100% of space. Whereas for the medium-sized browser, we will have it take up 50% of space. And then I don't know if they have a bigger, yes, they do. So medium-sized window takes up 50% of space, and then maybe, I don't know if this would work, like can we do a 25% of space for the large one? Now they also have something in their CSS that squishes the images appropriately. So let's see if we also need that. Let's see what effect it makes if we have that and don't have that. Okay, so cool. All right, so we have our lavender background. And here's some color theory for you. Because all of the colors are so saturated in the rainbow images that we just made, the lavender background looks almost white or gray, right? Even though on its own, we clearly saw it as lavender before. So that's a thing that happens when you have colors next to each other, they influence the way that the human body and mind perceives them. So because everything is so bright and saturated and like vibrant on the screen, the non-vibrant lavender just like kind of seems grayish or whitish to us. But it is indeed lavender. And now as we shrink it, we have our green background, so we know that the CSS is responding appropriately, and we have a 2-column image. And then they continue to shrink with the browser, and now that we have the blue background, we also have a single image. So this would be our mobile. Cool. I think that's a pretty great example for your assignment that is already open. Okay, cool. And then finally, I love all these colors. Okay, finally, I found a really nice this. So this is like an entire example of an entire like laid out web page. The little like tricky part about using this is that this is fully designed, and if you go off of this, like it kind of takes away your chance to follow your own like creative imagery because or imagination, right? Because once you start like trying to modify this, it's different than building your own thing up from scratch. So you know, use this with caution. Try to use what you could take from it, but like really make it your own if you do go to this. But it's a really nice, like just fully done out, clearly annotated example of a website that changes its layout using Flexbox. Did you guys watch that woman's channel, Jen? I forget her name on YouTube. Jen something. The like queen of CSS grid. It'll show up. Maybe I should call it like CSS grid explained. This lady, Jen Simmons. So like I would start out with like maybe looking through her channel if you're a little bit stumped about how to make your design, your wireframe. And then if she happens to have like that part explained, like if you're working with overlap or like putting stuff on the grid that looks like that, I would follow her, or like tilting things. I would try to get inspired from that. this video in particular is like just really, really good in terms of like explaining using fractions and like pixel widths, and like try to build up to that rather than necessarily, you know, looking at, well, this one's not, it's just the menu. Then looking at these and like trying to break them down so that they meet yours, because they're a little bit more like fully finished. So they leave a little bit less space for you to add your own things. For all of these assignments, you copy like the entirety of your old folder, and then you make a new folder, and then you change what you have to suit the assignment. So like in a sense, you're editing your old one, but you're making like a new subdirectory, right? So the way that I've been doing them here, we have CSS demo, then we have research site, then we have SVG demo. So, and a lot of them build upon each other, but they're not, but they're different, like they're in different folders. Does that make sense? So that's what I recommend, or I think that's what you're supposed to do. I haven't penalized people for editing their old websites, but it's definitely easier for us to understand what you're doing if you just make another one. Also, if you go back to your main index file, the one where you're supposed to link all your assignments to, like if you have the HTML link, right, but then you edited all your HTML pages to include CSS, that link is going to the same place. So they're not actually different things if you edit your old website, but they should be different things. So yes, the recommendation is to just make a new subdirectory, copy all your existing pages into it, and then modify them.